I want my family to stand up because I didn't think they were going to come. We were up until 4 this morning, and they looked so bright-eyed. I don't know how they did it. Please stand up. This is my daughter and my 2 granddaughters. And I know you know Jackson and Bo, and they're in their class. They're here every week with us. Thank you.
You'll see them when they come to sing.
I'm going to speak very quickly because I think we've run out of time.
1:45.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to start there's no beginning because there are too many beginnings with my life. I've known the Lord for almost 42 years since I had Melissa, who's my oldest daughter, when I came to Christ. But the thing that really changed my life was I married a man who was military from the military academy at West Point. And he came in my life as a Catholic who never had a Bible, came with a Bible, military issued with his name written in gold. And I thought, oh my God, how does he get to have a Bible? Only priests can have Bibles. And so when he wasn't home, I took it and I opened it up. When I opened it up, as an artist, I was excited to see the thin pieces of paper and the gold trim and the soft leather and his name written in gold. And I said, this is an amazing book. And I loved the book. Then I opened it up, and God did this. I opened it up to Corinthians 13, the love chapter. But his Bible was the King James Version, so there was no love there. It said charity. And as I read it, I began to cry and said, I want that charity. Whatever it is, not knowing what the word meant, I said, I want it. All I knew is I had to have it. Then I read the book of John, and it said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and God was the Word. No, in the beginning was God, and God was with the Word, and God was the Word. And I read that maybe 100 times because I didn't understand it. Now, who was he with? I wanted to know. Who was he with? But yet it was he. And so every moment I had, at that time I had 4 or 5 small children, even in the bathroom I would take it with me and read the book of John. I don't care where I was. I'd put it in front of the dishes while I was trying to do dishes. I'd do it all day long. I needed to know more. I wanted more in this book. Well, when I finished reading, I realized that it wasn't the book that I loved. It was the words that were in the book. And I began to have a relationship that was just full of love. What amazed me is that when I read the women of Proverbs, I laughed at God. At that point, he and I felt, had a very close relationship. And I said, this is impossible for any person to be this woman. And I said, I'm just going to read it and study it and find why they felt that this could be any one person, because here I was raising 5 kids. We were in the military. We were only living in each place maybe 6 to 8 months, and we were moving. And I said, how could I balance and do all of this? Well, when I got through studying this, I wept and wept and wept, and I said, God, I love you. I love your word. I have an understanding of what this is all about. Now, how do I tell women? That was the first thing on my heart, was how do I tell women how precious they are, how valued they are, and how much you love us? I'm not a scholar. I don't even read very well. I have a little dyslexic. I have a whole lot of dyslexic. And I said to the Lord, I'm not even a speaker. How can I do this? Because in my heart I felt I had to tell a woman. I said, how can I do this? And I'm not going to say I heard an audible voice or anything, but in my heart I knew he had given me this art. And I was to show women through my art the love of Christ. So I said to him, you're going to have to walk with me. You're going to have to take every step with me. You're going to even have to show me how to do this, because no one wants to see something that's a kindergarten project ripping paper. Well, I began to laugh as Christ began to laugh, and as my Father and Jesus began to laugh, I began to laugh, because my art has taken me to venues and people who would never invite anyone. I went to a Japanese-American group, and they invited me because I used some of their homemade and handmade paper, men and women. And with the art, and I will show you, I began to tell them about Christ and my love for Christ. I would go into, I can't remember the group, but they're voter groups. I can't remember all of them right now. I need to have a list here. But they're more on the feminist side and whatever. And they said, you can come in, we know your work, we've seen it, we want to know more about it, but don't talk about God. I said, okay, I won't talk about him. I said, I'll just talk about my art. And when I open up and I begin to speak, I begin to tell them that where my art comes from, how it started and how it began, and where I am with it now. So I said, well, Lord, you may not bring me here again, so I better tell them that they're made in the image of God and give them the whole lecture. So, and that's basically how I started. One of the most amazing groups that I think I went to that I really, truly enjoyed were the Muslims. And they invited me because I do women from all segments of life all over the world. And they saw images of themselves, and they wanted to know how and why did I created it. And again, I had to tell them, this is where it's come from. My amazement is, even the groups that tell me they don't want to hear my work afterwards, they receive me with such love and such warmth and want to know more. I went to a group so many times at different things, whether it was a church lecture or a women's retreat or whatever, that they actually got a pearl and they had it handmade with the way that you would wrap Christ, and they wrapped it around in gold and has it on the chain and gave it to me as a gift. One of my most precious one is it's a chip, but it's a ruby. And I cherish that very much. Another group, they had given me that. When I created the work, it's really prayed over. I do not sell my work until God tells me to release it, because I see images, I see people. I can do a piece in one night. I also do sculptures of all the women that are about 18 inches tall, and they're housed in plexiglass. I don't have everything here right now for you. But I rejoice that God has given me this as a frustrated sculpture. I hand tear and I put it together. I want to be a quilter. It doesn't work with me because I'm not precise. With a dyslexic, I cannot measure and keep things precise. So I tear and make my own quilts out of the paper, and so I have a lot of the women with that. One of the things that I admire very much is that God does have a sense of humor. Because when I am working and he tells me I can't release a piece until I pray about it, I'm amazed at what happens through it. And I said, Lord, we're going back to paper dolls. I don't understand this. I had a woman, a grandmother, who wanted me to do her grandson and all her grandchildren. And she came to me, brought me pictures, and I completed the work. And I said to her, I was up all night. I couldn't complete this little boy, and I don't know why. I teared him up. I put his legs back together. I just couldn't complete the piece. And she said, I need to tell you that my grandson is suffering from some kind of form of cancer. And I said, well, I want to tell you something. I have not slept all night to finish his work. So in order to finish his work, I have to pray over it because this is a joint effort. It's not me, it's God and me. And I said, I have prayed over this. And I talked to her how I prayed, what had happened. That morning when they came to pick up, after I got through talking with them, she and her husband both accepted Christ. They knew nothing about him. They were just people who heard of God but did not know about Jesus and his son. And they had accepted Christ that day and paid me handsomely for the work. What I saw when I studied, because I admire Mark, because Mark is, he just spits out everything, and everything he spits out, I eat it. Because his words, again, I'm in love with the words of the gospel. And Mark says it, and I spit it out. And our pastor's wife, she says it, and I just say, more, give me more. And it's not that I don't know, but something happens when I receive or hear his word. And it's very difficult for me to explain it to you unless you're in that position or you have that relationship with Christ. Then you have a greater understanding about the difference between a book and his word. And his word to me is sweet. It's sweet. I can be very depressed. I open or hear a word of him or I'm reading, and all of a sudden that's vanished. When I read and studied the ruby, I'm watching the time. When I read and studied what a ruby is and how it is formed, I said, God, women do not know how valuable they are, that he would compare us to rubies. A ruby is made from different alloys. Let me see if I can remember all of it. But it's made under the earth. And it's heated at a high process because it's under the earth. As it comes up, it's like molten metal. And what happens is all the molten metals on it, we call it in Massachusetts Roxbury stone, because pudding stone, because all the stones are all melted together. On the very top of a mountain in, what is it? I can't remember the name of the country. But the ruby sits right on the top. And if they get a 10-carat one weighing 10 carat, this particular ruby is already finished. It's what they call pigeon blood red, because it's that red like a pigeon's blood. It's clear and it shines and it's perfect. It's pure and it's perfect. It reminds me of the blood of Christ. 10 carat, one ruby is $30 million on the market today. It's always been very, very high. The other precious things that some of the Bibles will say rubies, some will say rubies and pearls, and some will say jewels. And you know about the pearl, that when it's in, especially the silver lip clam that's in the coast of Australia, it's a very wild place, it's very pure, the waters are still clean. This particular oyster that they try to get this pearl from, where this amigma, I think that's how you pronounce it, gets into the oyster. It's not sand. Everyone thinks it's sand. It's not. It squirts out a nectar, N-A-K-A. It's a substance like the mother of pearl, the inside of the oyster, and it keeps secreting this invading force that's come into its oyster. And as it coats it with this beautiful lustrous color, what it does is it takes about a good 7 years, and the oyster itself lives 40 years undisturbed. It's about a foot long, and each one of these pearls, when you find them, are perfection. They are as light but as strong as not cement, but one of the hardest metals that we have. That's how strong it is. It also, on the market, one pearl, one of the smaller pearls, not even the larger pearls, is $1.5 million. One pearl, so you can imagine a strand. I'm really giving you the formation of these gems only for you to understand when God says, like rubies, like jewels, or like pearls, he's saying, you are so valuable, women. You're so valuable, you are like this. You're perfect and you're pure. He sees us pure. He sees us perfect. And And sometimes we don't see ourselves that way. And he says, come to me even if you're heavy-hearted, even if you cannot solve your problems, even if you've done things that you say there's no way that anyone will love or want. He says, come to me just as you are. I will fix it. But you have to come to me. We cannot do these things by ourselves. God, when he rose, the first person that saw him was a woman. It was not his apostles, was not his followers. It was a woman. He placed such high value on us because we were so easily led by the world system. If we don't look a certain way, if we don't act a certain way, if we don't have a certain things, and we forget the Creator is the one who wants to do it through us. My art has taken me places, as I said, venues that just amaze myself. I'm just so amazed. I've been in groups that have been maybe 10. I went to a group 10 and we were supposed to have 100 people, and what ended up happening is they got the wrong date, so no one showed up. I said, well, I told the cooks and the helps, everyone come, let me give you my presentation. So everyone sat down. It was supposed to be a luncheon. Everyone sat down. I gave the presentation, and out of the 10, 4 of them came to Christ. I said, well, Lord, this is what you wanted. That's why it was the wrong date. These people would have never come because they were busy in the kitchen. And then I've had groups, 250, which mostly children or adults, and I bring all my artwork with the price tags, and I said, these are my gifts that God has given me, and I'm giving them to you to examine, to touch the sculptures. And in the 35 years that I've been doing this, I have never had, and I can honestly say, one breakage or one damage. When you respect children, they respect you. And I was amazed, and I sit them on the floor, 250 kids at a time, and I'm very amazed at how they are. My work, I didn't know how to price my work. And I said to the Lord, I sat down one night and I said, Lord, how do you price paper dolls? Because that's how I was looking at it. He said, this is my work. 8x10s originals start at $3,000. I've done 60 by 40s women in plexiglass that a hospital bought, and they were anywhere from 18 to 20,000 each. These are paper dolls. And God says he will take and confine people who think they know everything, who think they know everything. And he says, and I will use the simplicity and show some amazing things. And I feel that's what he's done with my paper. My paper comes from all over the world, and most of it comes from my customers, and I've found distributors where I can buy it. The last few years, when we came to California, I did sell a lot of it in Palm Desert, but the last 6 years we've been busy here with my 2 grandchildren. And I tell you something, I love my daughter because she's allowed me to teach and to love her most precious gift, and that's her children. And because that, I put streamers and bows on all my children that I do to remind us that they are gifts from God. I could go on because each verse that I've read is a whole hour lecture, but I just want to give you something really quick because I know the boys and the kids are coming in soon. But thank you very much. And remember, you can't do it without Christ. You can't do it without the Lord. Thank you very much.